My name is Elaine Cozart, and I'm your other worship associate today. Being present for others is such a gift, even more so when they are going through something difficult. But sometimes it's hard to be truly present when we have our own stuff going on, and even when we're just trying to get through the day-to-day stuff. Sometimes I feel like a taskmaster, just trying to get as much done as possible. Anybody else ever feel like that? Yeah. One of my friends moved out of state last year, and I am embarrassed to admit that during a recent phone call, I was multitasking. That was not being present. She offered to end our call when she could tell I was tending to something else, and I felt terrible. I dropped what I was doing and fully participated in the conversation. Giving of ourselves can be difficult when we're uncomfortable with whatever that other person is dealing with. It could be fear. It could be that the situation is maybe a little too personal. Add to that the discomfort of not knowing what to say or what to do, or not having a sense of what that grieving or sick person wants or needs. I'm the type of person who wants to know what you want or need from me. I guess it's because I don't want my presence or support to be an intrusion or to appear to be too pushy. I want to do it right. My sister, on the other hand, is a natural caregiver and pays close attention to the needs of others. If she so much as senses you're not feeling well, or maybe that you've experienced a loss, she is right there with a meal and a shoulder. When our mom became disabled from a pedestrian car accident, my sister just seemed to know what to do. She met with doctors and nurses and therapists and caregivers and all the other people and organizations that were involved in mom's care. At the time, I lived in Seattle, so this was many years ago, and I felt helpless and quite honestly useless. But when my sister needed a break, she let me know what was needed, and I made the effort to be there. She showed me how to care for all of our mom's physical needs, and I was able to help out many, many weekends until we had full-time live-in care for her. I have really good memories of spending that quality time with my mom. As someone who needed support myself during breast cancer treatment, I learned a little something about being present from so many of the people who showed up for me, including my sister, of course. There were phone calls and cards and text messages from people that I was close to, and even people who I hadn't seen or heard from in quite a while. Some people didn't really know what to say, but they just wanted me to know that they were thinking about me. There was one family member, she's really private and doesn't pry into other people's lives. And so because of that, I was really amazed that over the 9 months of treatment, she probably sent me a dozen cards. It was really amazing. And each time a new card arrived, it felt like she was right there on the journey with me. And others were more like me. They wanted to be told how to help. Their efforts and kindness were absolutely no less valuable or appreciated. The rides to appointments, the meals, and gift cards for meals really helped our family feel like we weren't alone. I felt like I wasn't alone. The support kept us moving through the journey until we didn't need that help anymore. And all of these acts of kindness were ministries of presence that I hope to pay back or pay forward when the opportunity presents itself. One such opportunity actually came up while I was in treatment. One of my friends was diagnosed with an eating disorder. At first, I tried to focus on her and not burden her with everything that was happening to me. But when I lost my hair, it was really hard to avoid the topic. When she went into residential treatment, our contact was limited, and the best I could do was to send cards. When she got out of residential, I had finished chemo and was able to give her more of my attention. My friend's journey to wellness has been a much longer road. When she's having a hard time, she'll send me a simple text. Can you talk? I am grateful for her trust and make sure I am fully present for her by being still and just listening. That means I avoid that multitasking. I ask questions when appropriate and offer kudos or a wahoo when she has made progress. I also check in on her terms. The point is, I try to remember the little things that others did for me. It reminds me that I need to judge myself less on what I haven't done or how someone else might offer support. Instead, I'm committed to paying attention and practicing being present.
Our reading this morning is from the book, It's Okay That You're Not Okay, by Megan Devine. She writes, I wish for you to find the people you belong with, the ones who will see your pain, companion you, hold you close, even as the heavy lifting of grief is yours alone. As hard as they may seem to be to find at times, your community is out there. Look for them, collect them, knit them into a vast flotilla of light that can hold you. I've had a few firsthand experiences with death. My dad, Doug, died in 2013 at age 82 after a few steady years of decline. My brother Bart died of suicide in 2010. And my mother-in-law, Wanda Robertson, succumbed to cancer very quickly in 2008. She spent her last weeks and finally died in the house that I shared at the time with my wife. Wanda was a member of this congregation and sang in our choir. Reverend Dana Worsnop was our minister then, and she officiated Wanda's funeral. I remember Reverend Dana commenting on the good job I was doing managing all the details of the funeral. She said, it's always good in a time of grief and loss for someone to be able to function like that. That was also true about the times after my dad and brother's deaths. It felt good for me to have a role to play and to be helpful, useful. And I see in hard times that usefulness was the primary way I related to others and myself. And while usefulness can be very useful, at this point in my life, I want something more. Most of my life, I found deeper emotions hard to access. And this is especially true in times of loss or grief or fear, whether for myself or for others. When confronted by those strong emotions, I retract. I retreat into my head, and I try to think my way through the experience. That's been my history, but I don't want that to be my legacy. I want to be more connected to my own feelings and to those of others, to show up more fully. I want to be present for myself and the people in my life. My partner, Pam, recently lost her beloved friend, Sybil, to cancer. Sybil was just 50. I saw Pam be genuinely, thoughtfully present for Sybil, for her husband, and for herself. Seeing that made me realize that I want to be better at doing that. And I'm moving into a time in my life in which I will experience more loss in this community, in my community. So it seemed like a good time to look at how to shift my relationship to those deeper emotions. I heard a term recently that struck me as a good framing device for this exploration. A ministry of presence, to minister to or care for others by being present. That sounded like a legacy, but I'd like to create. My understanding of grief was largely formed by the 5 stages model put forth by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in 1969. She wrote that the 5 stages of grief are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. How many of you have heard that model, those stages? Yeah. I always thought that this was the correct way to grieve. It seems like it can be helpful, even a validating framework for navigating something that can be really hard for people to navigate. But recently, I've learned that it isn't as widely accepted as I thought. As the 5 stages model became popular, it became a one-size-fits-all, how-to, step-by-step guide to grieving. And as I read again and again, there is no one or right or normal way for people to grieve. In the book, What Grief Isn't, Dead Grief Concepts and Their Digital Age Revival, authors Morna O'Connor and Elaine Cozart write, "We used to think grief was about moving through a set of prescribed stages, a process after which we would be over it and resume normality. However, this view has been dismissed, and the harmful effects of such a universal, linear, and reductive grief accounts are well established." They continue, "Research suggests there's no one right or healthy way to grieve, no stages, no steps, no prescriptions. Rather, grief involves survivors telling stories of their dead, their relationship to them and themselves, in relationships with others doing the same. Our stories of our dead are interpretive, creative, and active, and our griefs are as idiosyncratic and diverse as the relationships to which they pertain." These were new ideas for me, and an indication that a ministry of presence might indeed be a good way to frame relating to somebody in grief. To tell stories of our dead or of our loss, we need someone to hear those stories, someone who is willing and able to be present with the grief, the stories, and to share in their telling. Another challenge with the 5-step model is that once you've made it through the last step, you're done. After you achieve acceptance, you won't feel any more grief or need any more support. You're over it. You've moved on. In her frequently funny TEDx talk, writer and podcaster Nora McInerney says that she and others in her grief groups hate the term moving on. She says, "We don't move on from grief, we move forward with it." Author Emma Gray writes, "Grief lasts as long as love lasts." My experience has been that over time, it becomes easier to carry. Life can grow around the loss, but the loss never leaves. And in the same text from which I pulled our reading, grief expert Megan Devine writes, "Some things cannot be fixed. They can only be carried. Grief like yours, love like yours, can only be carried." So I don't need to fix grief. You don't need to fix grief. It doesn't need to be solved or resolved. I need to make space for grief to last as long as love would last. And I need to know that those who are in grief will have stories they want to tell. These ideas allow the part of me that fears grief to relax a little. Grief is unfixable, and that's okay. Letting myself off the hook for fixing grief allows space for me to do something different. As Megan Devine suggested, maybe my role is to see the pain of others, companion them, hold them close. This understanding is really helpful, and it doesn't tell me what to do when I'm companioning someone in their grief. How do I do it? I think there are three parts to this: what to say, what to do, and how to take care of myself as I say and do it. So let's start with what to say. Sheryl Sandberg, the former chief operating officer of Facebook, lost her husband suddenly in 2015. In an interview 2 years later, she said, "I used to think that if someone was going through something hard, if I brought it up, I was reminding them. You can't remind me I lost Dave. You can't remind someone their child is sick. You can't remind someone their dad went to jail, or their mom is in trouble, or they just lost their job. It's not possible to remind anyone of that. They know that. So when people didn't say anything, I just felt like there was a huge elephant following me everywhere." I talked to Reverend Stephanie Skollick about this. Reverend Stephanie is a chaplain at Providence Portland Hospital and was our intern here. She told me, "Don't worry about having the perfect words. You're not going to fix what's wrong. You're merely going to let them know they are not alone in it." And Reverend Marcia told me that sometimes the most caring pastoral thing she can say is, "That's really shitty. I'm sorry." I have been in situations in which I didn't know the right thing to say, so I didn't say anything. And I've been afraid to speak for reminding someone of their loss. It's a relief to hear that these aren't things I need to worry about, that a simple, heartfelt acknowledgement is often what is needed. In an article in the online magazine Bustle, therapist Lisa Viglietta says it's better to say something than nothing. She writes, "It's very easy to avoid difficult and painful conversations, but these are times when conversations mean the most. Don't be afraid to talk to a loved one that is lost. By sharing memories of them and talking about them, you are honoring them and supporting the grievers during their most difficult time." We've all heard the phrase, "I'm sorry for your loss." Honestly, I struggle with that phrase a little bit. It feels so formulaic. I asked Reverend Stephanie how she felt about it. She said, I think there are likely more people who feel soothed by its ritual flavor than those who are rubbed the wrong way by it being cliched. But I also think it matters how you say it. Rote is as rote does, you know? Sally Betzer, who is a member of our congregation's End of Life Matters group, says that if you are brief and to the point and coming from a loving place, folks will open up to you and talk back. And then your role becomes listener, and that makes all the difference. That means if I'm struggling to know what to say, a simple, genuine message, even a common one, is better than saying nothing. So if it's better to say something than nothing, does that mean it's better to say anything than nothing? No. While there may be no right thing to say, there are wrong things to say. Reverends Stephanie and Marcia both referred to an idea called ring theory. Reverend Marcia shared a 2018 article in Psychology Today by Deborah Davis that explained it. So we're going to bring up my nifty ring theory graphic behind me, using all the technology we have. Okay. Okay, there's some color. So as you can see, ring theory is based on concentric rings. Davis writes, in the center ring is the person or people who are most directly affected, aggrieved, or afflicted. In the next rings are close relatives, then true friends, then acquaintances, then caregivers. The outermost circles contain community members and bystanders. Now imagine a spotlight. Train it on the center ring so it is most brightly lit, making it abundantly clear where the focus of caregiving should be. Now notice how the light fades out across all the rings, which become more dimly lit as they span outward. So we've got our community organized into different rings and the spotlight where it needs to be. Now there's one basic rule. Comfort in, dump out. Wherever you find yourself on this chart, your job is to give comfort to the people closer to the center of the ring. Comfort and only comfort. And when you need support to express your own fear or pain or frustration, you share those things with people further away from the center on the rings. Davis continues, if you're in the center ring, it sucks, but you're smack in the spotlight and you can say anything to anybody. You can talk about your experience, express your feelings, cry, despair, bitch, and moan. If you're in any outer ring, you too can talk about your experience and emotions, complain and cry, but not to anyone who is in a ring closer to the center than yours. Even if you are a close friend of someone in an inner ring, it's inappropriate to confide in them about how your woes or how difficult this is for you to watch. That would be shifting the spotlight from their ring to yours. Instead, dump out to the folks who inhabit a more dimly lit circle. Comfort in, dump out. Say something rather than nothing, but make sure it's comforting and supportive, empathetic, and appropriate to who you're saying it to. And it's especially important to avoid things we think are comforting, but really aren't, like looking for a silver lining, or problem solving, or saying, when this happened to me, or the Lord works in mysterious ways. And if you're not sure what you're going to say is comforting rather than shifting the spotlight onto you, you might be better off going with a heartfelt, I'm sorry for your loss, than a risk compounding their pain. In a follow-up article, Davis offered some other concrete suggestions. Keep it simple and honest. Talk less, listen more. Prepare to be dumped on, and keep it real. She has another suggestion which moves us from what to say to what to do. She writes, make concrete offers of assistance. Don't say, let me know if you need anything, as this puts the onus on them. Instead, offer what you can realistically offer. Instead, offer what specifically suits their needs and what you can realistically follow through on, such as running errands, doing household chores, providing transportation. Your careful consideration of their needs is the way to keep the spotlight pointed where it belongs. I know that bringing food is a traditional thing that folks do when someone is in grief. A couple of comments from friends gave me insight onto what it feels like to receive it, well, in addition to Elaine's story from her reflection. My friend Mitch lost his wife to cancer a year and a half ago. He said it meant so much when friends called and said they were bringing food over. He and his wife had been self-isolating, and having good friends bring food and offer company was a welcome break. He pointed out that his wife, Chris, was not in a lot of pain at the time and had good cognitive function still, so companionship worked for them. For others, staying for dinner might be too much. Kate Fassett, a member of our congregation, lost her brother recently. She said she appreciated people who just brought her food without asking anything of her. All I wanted was, here is some food, she said. The food fed her and her immediate and extended family and made it so she didn't have to make any decisions about it. Kate also shared that she appreciated receiving texts from friends that made her laugh. They just stepped into the moment without asking, she said. Texts with questions were harder. Asking a question to someone on the inside of their rings is not necessarily providing comfort. Another action I saw in person happened when my mother-in-law was dying of cancer. As I said, she was a member of the choir here, and the choir came to our house and sang to her. It was a simple, beautiful gesture that meant a lot to all of us. And still, when I hear, come sing a song with me, it still gets me. One final area of action I want to highlight is around memorials. I went to the celebration of life for Pam's friend Sybil. It was amazing. So many people and stories and memories. And I confess, I was a little surprised by the very large scale of it. It was a lot of effort. Something Kate said gave me a good perspective on it. Talking about her brother's memorial, she said she was really moved by how many people from this congregation attended, even though they didn't know her brother and it was held at a different church. She really felt supported and held by this community. She also said that everyone who came got to know a few things about her brother, and they all left carrying a little piece of him. If grief is about telling stories, then part of Kate's grieving was telling folks from her church community his story and knowing that he lived on a little bit in them. Likewise, I carry a piece of Pam's friend Sybil because I got to hear her stories. This brings me to my last point, taking care of yourself when you're supporting someone who is grieving. Another good thing about ring theory is that it gives us a roadmap for asking for our own support. As long as you're looking to rings further from the center than your own, asking for help is appropriate. In the Bustle article I referred to earlier, therapist Nicole Richardson says, it may sound counterintuitive when someone you love is struggling, but they need to know you're all right. She points out when you're on an airplane, they tell you in an emergency to put your own oxygen mask on first, before assisting others. Richardson continues, when someone you care about is struggling, taking care of yourself allows the person who is struggling to get your best, which is what they need. So what does it look like for you to put your own oxygen mask on first? Before I talk or visit with someone who's having a very hard time, what do I need to do to be ready? The best thing might be to acknowledge my feelings so I know where I am, identify what I have to give and what I may need from others. That way I go into support mode, aware and awake, and ready to give my person the best that I have. As we seek to support another, we need to support ourselves. The patience, kindness, and love we want to show others needs to be extended to ourselves first. Showing up for others, showing up for ourselves, saying something, listening, doing what we can, ministering to the grieving with our presence. In doing so, maybe we can indeed be knit into the vast flotilla of light that can buoy each of us in our times of need.